They fine me for BBQs. My move? Buy the community park and kill their access. I moved into a lovely house in a nice neighborhood 6 months ago. It's a great place. The people are friendly. Everyone knows everyone. We look out for each other's houses when we go on vacation. People share tools and equipment instead of everyone having to buy their own. We even have a neighborhood Facebook page where people post if they find something or ask for recommendations. A few weeks ago, I received a letter from the Homeowners Association entitled Community Enhancement Initiative. It contained a list of new rules, some of which were already being broken by several neighbors. Some of them were things I had done to my yard since moving in, which I did because it was grandfathered in. The letter told us that we would have 60 days to come into compliance. First off, a grill has to be completely hidden behind a fence or wall. If your grill cannot be screened off, it must be painted HOA-approved colors and the paint must be refreshed annually. If you have a hose or garden line outside, it has to be completely retracted. Hoses hanging from a hose bib are allowed. All gutters and downspouts must be painted. All doors facing the street must be painted. Approved colors are listed in the letter. And as a side note, my entire exterior was the wrong color. I went and bought paint chips and matched the closest 3 colors to my house. The next day, I get a notice of violation in the mail. Apparently, my porch rail was the wrong color, my grill was out, and a hose was hanging from the hose bib. For these 3 violations, I was fined $300. What's ridiculous is that the fine goes up $25 a day until the violations are fixed. This means that by the time I actually get around to fixing the rail, the fine will have gone up over $100. There's also late fees. On top of that, the paint I need is special order and will take 2 weeks to arrive. I called the number on the notice to try and explain that the paint was on order and to ask how I should handle the violation while I wait for the paint. I got a recording saying that all violations had to be handled online through the portal. Okay, fine. I log on to the site and there's no way to appeal. There's also no way to pay the fine without setting up autopay. I can't set up autopay because I don't have a credit card, and trying to pay the fine without autopay results in an error message. So I waited the 2 weeks for my paint. I changed the color of my rail, painted the doors, and cleaned up my hose situation. I took pictures and uploaded them to the violation site, only to receive another violation notice for one of my doors still being the wrong color. By this point, I was pissed off. I called the phone number again and demanded to speak to someone. I got a very nice lady who transferred me to the president of the HOA, Calder. I explained the situation to Calder and she said that I could fix the door after the first of the year. That was 3 weeks later. I told her that I didn't appreciate the rude letters and she basically told me to suck it up because it came from the board. I asked for an email address so I could explain the situation in writing and she gave me the board's email address. I sent an email explaining the situation and asking why I was getting such harsh treatment when others weren't. I even offered to send pictures of other people's violations. I never got a reply. Several days later, I received another violation notice for my screen door being propped open too far. I looked around the neighborhood and saw that many people left their screens open or propped up. I checked the website and sure enough, I had been fined $50 for each occurrence. I decided then that it wasn't worth arguing and I'd just pay the fines. A few days later, I get a letter telling me that my fine has increased to $450. I check the site and it turns out that not only are they fining me for the screen door, but they're also fining me for having a vine growing on my house. They said that vines are not allowed unless they're planted on the approved plant list. I pulled up the plant list and searched for vine. There were none. This was the same plant that the nursery I bought it from told me was an absolute staple of our area. Apparently, the HOA doesn't believe in plants that grow. The flowers were nice when they bloomed, and every time I walked by, the sweet smell made me smile. Well, apparently, the HOA didn't approve of my happiness. Calder stops by to tell me that I have a new violation for my jasmine vine. She says that she'll make a motion to reduce the fine to 1 time if I remove it. I asked why I was being targeted, and she replied that I was being difficult. At this point, I was pretty sure that Calder was making stuff up as she went along. There was no rhyme or reason to what she was fining me for. Just to prove it, I went on the app and pulled up the deed covenants. I knew that there was talk of changing some of the rules, but I didn't think anything had been altered yet. I scrolled through the document and couldn't find any mention of paint colors, vines, grills, etc. I found the section that mentioned fines. It stated that the HOA could impose fines of up to $100 for any violation. It also stated that all decisions made by the HOA were final and could not be appealed. I thought, well, maybe they've added the rules to the meeting minutes. I went onto the HOA's website and found a link to the meeting minutes. I downloaded the past few months and combed through them. No mention of grills, vines, colors, etc. I started to suspect that the rules were just made up. This meant that Calder was either doing this to me or she was doing this to everyone. I checked the website to see how board members were elected. It said that they were registered as a nonprofit with the state. So I went to the state business registry and pulled up their information. The president was Calder and her term ended a month ago. According to the bylaws, you had to be a member in good standing for at least a year before you could run for the board. You also couldn't serve more than 2 consecutive years. This meant that she wasn't even supposed to be on the board. I felt vindicated. This was personal. She was picking on me. I watched my mail for the next few weeks waiting for my next violation. Then I got a letter stating that my pool key had been deactivated. It turns out that I had been fined for not closing my pool for the winter. I looked at the rules that they had given me and it turns out that it was buried in the pool rules. I guess I didn't get that memo. But the letter also stated that I was being fined for not having a pool fence and for not having a pool alarm. It was at that point that I realized that this was going too far. I got on the community app and posted that the HOA was deactivating people's pool keys because of violations and that they needed to get on top of this. Within an hour, a neighbor messaged me to say that she hadn't had a pool key to begin with. She had moved in last summer and the HOA never gave her one. I asked if she had gotten any violations for her pool. She said that she had. I asked her how much she owed and she said that the HOA just told her that she owed an undisclosed amount and that they would let her know when it was settled. I asked her if she would like me to look into it and she said yes. I called the office and got a hold of the manager. I explained that I was looking out for my neighbors and asked how much she owed. The manager said that I should really let this go. It was just a formality. She said that my neighbor owed $750. I told the manager that I was going to put it on the agenda for the next HOA meeting and I wanted it discussed. She told me that I should really let it go. It was time to strike. The next HOA meeting was 2 weeks away. In the meantime, I went back through the documents and found out where they kept their contracts and other important papers. I decided to run for the board, and I nominated my neighbor Pam to be president. I contacted a few other neighbors to see if they were interested and they agreed. At the meeting, I brought up the issue of my neighbor's pool. Calder tried to shut me down, but Pam objected. Pam pointed out that I was a member in good standing and I was raising a concern about another member. Calder tried to argue, but it was clear that I was winning the support of the majority. I then showed the board the paperwork proving that Calder wasn't even a member, let alone president of the HOA. She had been keeping herself in power by intimidating people into compliance. The board voted me in as president, and I immediately relieved Calder of duty. I then turned the meeting over to Pam, the new president. Her first order of business was to suspend all contracts. She appointed an auditor to review all past actions and decisions. She created an email address to handle violations, and she reminded everyone that there was a process in place to appeal decisions. I stood at the back of the room watching as Calder reluctantly surrendered the keys to the binder containing all the documents. She left the meeting in tears. A month later, the auditor released his report. It detailed everything Calder had been doing to enrich herself, like giving her friend's company low bid contracts and collecting kickbacks. The new board immediately fired her friend. As for me, my fines were reduced to 1 time and my screen door and jasmine vine are still there. My neighbor got her pool key back and she paid nothing. The community is a much healthier place now. Everyone participates and contributes. We're currently working on a new park in the center of the neighborhood. The moral of the story is that a lack of accountability, not conflict, destroys a community. Thank you for reading this story, and if you like it, please consider subscribing for more.